And now, your official TigerBait live show with Mike Scarborough and Buddy Songi starts now.
All right, everybody, welcome in. Big show tonight, TigerBait Live, and I'm real excited. Got a LSU grad in the house with us, Chris Gordy from Sports Talk 790 in Houston, and you want to talk about a guy who's got his hats in many areas. He also does a great Locked On SEC podcast, his YouTube channel, Locked On SEC. Be sure before the end of the night to go over there and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell on that and all his great content. It's great that we have him tonight because what starts Monday, SEC Football Media Kickoff 2024 in Dallas, and he'll be there in both regards with his YouTube channel as well as Sports Talk in Houston. And Chris, welcome in, man.
Yeah, what's up, Mike? It's good to be on, man. I've been knowing you a long time, and I think we've done radio interviews. I've had you on as a guest and all that kind of stuff, but I've never been on your show, so good to be here, man.
Yeah, man. We've been expanding these each year, and YouTube channel's been blowing up, and we're going to be doing a lot more of it during football season. But I think it's great that we're hooking up now because it, while a lot of us that cover LSU have tunnel vision for everything LSU, and we've got a kind of an idea of what we think the SEC race is going to look like and what everybody has and does not have. You do a much deeper dive into everybody and have to keep your eye on all the little bits and pieces. So what are some of the storylines? I guess we'll start with, what are some of the storylines that you're looking forward to next week that maybe not a whole lot of people are talking about? Obviously, the fact that it's in Texas for the first time with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, that's the overarching storyline. But after the dust settles on that, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to, or you think that people are undercovering leading into it?
Well, I mean, it's going to start with Texas and Oklahoma, right? And just the weirdness of having two new programs that are very proud, they have huge followings, and it's really funny. I've seen a lot of Texas fans in our comments on videos and stuff, and they're bringing a level of arrogance to the SEC. And look, maybe deservedly so, right? Because they just came off a playoff appearance. They won double-digit wins, and the arrow seems pointed upwards. Sark is recruiting at a high level, and there's reasons to be excited. They bring back their quarterback at Quinn Ewers. They got Arch Manning waiting in the wings. So it's right to be that way, but very few Texas fans I've talked to have been the level-headed ones saying, look, we know it's going to be a tougher conference. We're hoping we're good. We're hoping we're SEC ready, but, time will tell on that. Oklahoma seems to be a little bit more measured. Most of the Oklahoma fans I've talked to, they understand they're coming in with five-star quarterback Jackson Arnold, who got his feet wet starting the bowl game after Dylan Gabriel left. And, a lot of people are picking them to, about 7 wins. Oklahoma did win 10 games last year. They're still a really good team. They bring back some big-time players like Danny Stutzman at linebacker and Billy Bowman at DB. I mean, they've got some dudes. And Brent Venables, his bread and butter is the defense. The whole reason they went defensive and paid Venables what they did after Lincoln Riley left was they loved making the playoff with Lincoln Riley. They hated losing, 50 points to all these SEC teams they were playing because they had no defense. So, it's just kind of funny to see that dynamic. And everybody's talking about the schedules, who got the hard schedules, who got the easy schedules. Texas, presumably, a lot of people think got an easy one, while Oklahoma got a really hard one. And then the other storyline, Mike, is Missouri and Ole Miss. The two big teams that took a huge step forward last year, double-digit wins, and their schedules are very easy this year. They're winnable schedules that set up where even if they lose their 2 toughest games, they're both going to go 10-2 and presumably make the playoff. And, my thing with Lane Kiffin is he's always been the bridesmaid, never the bride. Are you ready for prime time? Lane Kiffin's a very good head coach, but are you an elite head coach? And to get into that elite category, he's got to take that step forward and either go 12-0 or 11-1 and get to Atlanta. The old joke, never ask an Ole Miss fan directions to Atlanta. They don't know. They've never been. So, maybe they get there. But even if they don't, even if they go to 10-2 and lose to Georgia and LSU, they're still going to make the playoff, presumably at 10-2. So to me, those are just a couple of the big storylines in the SEC. And then you dig a little bit deeper. And obviously, LSU, is the defense going to be better this year? I think most people we talk to, any other team you lose a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, you go, oh, yeah, offense is going to take a step back. I think we all feel good about the LSU offense. It's that defense. I think they got all the right coaches in place now, but they don't have the Jimmies and Joes yet, right? I mean, they're a little tweaking here and there. I like Jordan Gilbert. I like some of the recruits they brought in, but are they ready? Are they there yet? And maybe they don't have to be, Mike. Maybe the offense is good enough that defense just being 20% better from last year will be an improvement and can win a little 3-point game here or there. We'll see. But to me, those are just kind of some of the storylines I'm looking at.
Well, I'm laughing because I'm looking at some of the comments, just glancing at them while you're talking, and Hal Jubin says UT fans arrogant, say it ain't so. And that was one of the things I was going to bring up to you, but I wasn't sure how lightly you like to tread on that, being that you do a daily show in Houston every day. Do you say that on the air over there? Because I've been warning folks around here for a long time. If you think Alabama fans are arrogant, wait till you have to deal with Texas for a few years, and you'll realize that they're a walk in the park. And certainly LSU fans that live in the state of Texas know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, and they forget that even in the Red River rivalry, Oklahoma has dominated that rivalry for years now, and yet they act like we're not worried about them. And it's like, you guys lost to them last year. Even in your 12-win season, you still lost to Oklahoma. So it's just it's really funny that they are very arrogant. And it's funny too, Houston is made up a lot of, you got some Houston Cougar fans, but really the bulk of the college fan base, it's very heavily Aggie, with A&M being an hour up the road. Right behind them is probably Texas, and not far behind them is LSU. Those are the three big, huge alumni bases in Houston, because so many people from Baton Rouge work in oil and gas or nursing or whatever, and they come over to Houston. So it is funny, the different dynamics of those fan bases. The A&M fans, they got cocky and arrogant a couple years ago when NIL became a thing, and they bought themselves the #1 recruiting class, and it backfired on them. It didn't work out, and Jimbo Fisher was. I had somebody describe him he was a snake oil salesman. I mean, he would go to these coaching, things where they talk to everybody about the early in the season, and Jimbo, you'd walk out of that thing going, man, we're going undefeated. Jimbo's got this thing rolling, and they'd go out there and win 7-8 games. And you're like, well, that wasn't very good. So, most of the A&M fans they're pretty humble. There's some that are still kind of talk trash, but the Longhorn fans they're all seemingly bought in. Now, it's funny too. I will say that the timing on this, because year one of Sark, he went 5-7. If they were coming into the SEC this year, I think you'd have a lot more realistic Texas fans. But coming off a 12-win season where they made the playoff, that's a big reason why they're all kind of rocking around with their chests puffed out. It'd be the same thing like if LSU was in the Big 12 the year the year with Joe Burrow and they won the national championship, and then come the SEC. Of course, we'd all be walking out with our chest puffed out, going, "Yeah, we're going to come in and dominate this conference."
Well, so just to switch gears real quickly, since you brought it up and we're talking about where you reside, a few weeks ago, Sloss from A&M to Texas. What was that like in the Houston area when that happened? What your Aggie fans, Aggies that call into the radio show, what was that like? I mean, that shit, they were blown out. I mean, I read the message board post, and it was meltdown city.
Well, I think what really started to transpire was you realize this thing didn't happen in 24 hours. Like, it didn't happen. He didn't come off of losing the national championship to Tennessee and then go home and talk to his wife and go, Crystal Conte just reached out and wants us to go to Texas. What do you think? That didn't happen. This thing was clearly in the works for several weeks. In fact, I heard one of the assistants that was going with him had told one of his kids had told his little league team, "Hey, this is our last game because my family's moving away. We're going to Austin." Like, this thing was already in the works and decided. So
they had quit recruiting.
Yeah, it's slimy. My big question is, what if they had won? Like, what would he have done if they won? If A&M beats Tennessee in that game 3 and he wins a national championship, does he still leave for Texas? I don't know. It's
what kind of parade? What kind of parade would that have been?
Exactly. Coach isn't here at the parade. He's at our bitter rival across the way. But it was very odd. It was even weirder. Last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago, I was over in Austin for the big celebration when they came into the conference, and We got to stand next to Schlossnagle with some of the media. We put microphones in his face, and he's wearing the burnt orange with the Longhorn logo. I'm like, dude, like not even 7 days ago, you were wearing an Aggie jersey and coaching in a national championship. So it was just weird how it transpired. I think all of us kind of look at it and say it's dirty, it's slimy, it doesn't feel good. But I will say, Mike, on the flip side, Texas is getting a hell of a baseball coach. Schloss has been a winner.
Yeah.
He did an incredible job at TCU. He actually did an incredible job at A&M. Look at how quick he got them back relevant to Omaha and all that. So we'll see what he does at Texas, man. I don't know. Texas, obviously all the years of Augie Garrido and great success, but I don't know if it's like this mecca of college baseball that, they have way more resources than A&M. I mean, I think A&M had just about everything he could have had at Texas too.
Yeah, I know, LSU in Houston for the baseball classic this past year and all the Texas fans there. And they were just like, what? They were like, why are y'all so excited about this? This isn't, they don't understand the passion for college baseball. Particularly in a series like that early in the year, a tournament like that out of town. And I guess it just means more. They're going to realize that soon enough. But all right, let's dive into some questions, folks. If you're enjoying the show, please do me a favor, hit the like button if you're enjoying it. And of course, as always, if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button and that notification bell. Devin Johnson, good evening, guys. Thanks for all you do. Love the show. Can't wait for football. Roger Ramjack, hey, Mike and Buddy. Buddy's not with us tonight. Chris Gordy's filling in for him. In fact, Chris is kind of a regular on Buddy's shows as well. Always enjoy the show. And he said, I mean, Mike and Chris. Yeah, are we expecting some good news from the portal? Chance Babin, 10 o'clock tonight. We'll see who it is. If I know who it was, I wouldn't spoil it. But it sure looks like it's going to be somebody big.
I'll throw out the rumor is the UC San Diego pitcher. He's supposedly the real deal. But look, the way that Kendall Rogers, some of these guys are talking, it's like, oh, they're saying somebody huge. So we'll see.
Yeah. Todd Davis would have go Tigers. Spectrum Wellcare here. Chemo's having a great offseason. I think there's a lot of guys on that LSU roster that are having a good offseason. We're just weeks away. I mean, practice is going to start August 1st. Let's see. Todd Davis, when is the Bayou Splash? It's into July. Usually the whatever that third or fourth weekend is. I don't have the date in front of me. All right, let me scroll down here. Biggest, will we get Jabori or DJ Pickett? Cornerback recruits. LSU sitting with 0 cornerback commits right now. It either the number 1 or number 2 biggest need on this LSU football roster. And Jabori's going to re-up. Could it be Miami? Is it LSU? Is it Florida State? We'll see. There's been some Miami buzz early in the week. Corey Raymond needs to get that one in Pickett. That one could also be Miami and LSU and others. So would I go out on a limb and say LSU's getting one or both of them? I would not at this point. But they need to get at least one of them. And
it sounds like Miami for Pickett, right? Or it's trending that way.
Yeah, and it has been, but we'll see. It's Cristobal, man, is putting together a class.
Got money.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. All right. I'm looking at this, and you brought it up earlier, and I based on the way you went down the line and talking about it, when you start looking at the way the SEC is going to shake out, and probably at the end of the week when they tally up all the votes in the order of predicted finish, I'm sure. You got Georgia number 1, Alabama behind them, or Texas behind Georgia? How are you?
Yeah, Georgia's number 1. I mean, that's clear and clear cut. Like the three-peat was a possibility last year. They go into that SEC championship game banged up. Brock Bowers was not 100%. Ladd McConkey was not 100%. They lose an offensive lineman mid-game. They lose the game by 3, and yet suddenly they become one of the not top 4 teams in the country. I don't know how that happened, but clearly we saw, I mean, I know Florida State had all their scrubs in, but still Georgia just dismantled them and clearly showed they were one of the 3 best teams in the country. So now you get an angry Georgia team out for revenge with Kirby Smart, who, oh, by the way, with Nick out, with Saban retired, Kirby clear-cut best coach in the SEC, if not the country. So, yeah, man, it feels like Georgia is set for a, not a 3-peat, but 3 out of 4. And I think has a chance to start throwing the dynasty word around, where Nick Saban kind of created that at Alabama for the better part of a decade, being a national contender every year with the expectation to win a national championship. And I think if Kirby does that this year, man, put Georgia in that category. Like, he's created a monster. They're recruiting at a high level, developing players, developing quarterbacks. That they upgrade running back, bringing in Trevor Etienne from Florida. So, yeah, man, it's Georgia definitely at the top. The question is who's going to be the second best team, and that's where I fall into. I can't buy Texas just yet, man. I got to see how you respond on a whole schedule of an SEC slate. I think they're in the conversation. I think Ole Miss is in the conversation. I would absolutely put Ole Miss right in that category as like number 2 or 3 in the SEC if they hadn't lost Quinshon Judkins. I think Judkins was that special that he was so good in the backfield. It took so much pressure on Jackson Dart to do what they wanted in the passing game, play action, everything else. And I'm
not sold on any of the Ole Miss running backs.
No, Ulysses Bentley's okay, but he'd be a number 2 on just about every other SEC roster, and that's what he was. So, but I think Ole Miss is going to be good just because of the schedule. I think Missouri's going to be awesome again with Brady Cook and Luther Burden. How much does losing Blake Baker hurt? I think that really hurts. And then all the guys they lost to the draft. So I think that plays into it. But Bama, I can't say I'm just not a Jalen Milroe believer yet. Like, he was good. He got better as the year went along. But just because, look at the games he got better in. He beat up on LSU. Look, Mike, you and I could have thrown for 300 yards against LSU last year. He beat up on Kentucky. Okay, great, it's Kentucky. And then again, in the SEC championship, he made some plays with his legs, but go look at the stats. He was the SEC championship MVP, and look at his numbers. They weren't even that good. Like, he wasn't, wasn't like a high completion percentage, wasn't a ton of yards. So I'm jury's still out for me on Milroe if he's going to be the guy. And, is Kalen DeBoer ready for prime time? I mean, look at that guy's track record. He was a head coach at Fresno State and then a head coach at Washington. There's no track record of like great, 15 years. Somebody tried to compare him to Brian Kelly because they both coached at a lower tier and had great success. I said, yeah, but Brian Kelly had years at Cincinnati and then, years and years at Notre Dame. He proved, I'm a big time D1 coach. I don't know if Kalen DeBoer is that yet. Like, jury's still out. So, yeah, look, nothing would warm my, mine and your listeners' LSU hearts more than to see an absolute Bama meltdown of 4 losses this year. And Mike, that first loss, I cannot wait. I mean, Feinbaum's going to be must-see TV that Monday after the first DeBoer loss.
Well, who's their first loss? You giving me one?
It might be here, sneak peek. It might be at Wisconsin, Mike. Like, I know Wisconsin's not great. Luke Fickell, we'll see what he does there, but that's a tough place to play. Week 2, they got to go on the road to go play. If they lose a close game there, they turn the ball over a couple times, and that place is rocking. Oh, look, my gosh, that's going to be an epic meltdown.
There's multiple SEC teams, including LSU, with early season matchups that can dictate whether you're on your way to meeting your fan base's expectations. LSU, of course, going to Vegas, USC is a must-have for LSU. First of all, to break the season opening losing streak, they need to get that off their back. But really, the schedule sets up well for LSU. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately. When you look at the 8-game SEC schedule, and look, money's going to dictate it. Whether they ever go to 9s, it's going to be a money deal. But if all things were equal, I think LSU is certainly happy with the way the schedule has worked out for them. This schedule is very conducive to have some success. If you didn't have the question marks at corner and defensive tackle, I could tell you this: if they didn't have those question marks, I'll be in the 11-1 camp for LSU.
Yeah, I still think the schedule you're making it harder on yourself than it needs to be. No one said you had to go play USC in Vegas to start the season. No one says you have to play UCLA with the return home trip in week 4. Like, those are to any other year, Mike, UCLA would be your toughest non-conference game. But you got them and USC. And I look at Ole Miss's non-conference. They get Furman, Middle Tennessee. Their toughest non-conference is at Wake Forest and then Georgia Southern. Like, give me that. I'd rather LSU play that. I know that's right. 4 wins right there. You know,
but my point is, if you go down the line, if LSU wins the opener, it really does set up well for them. If they can find a way to make that defense work and have a rotation in the interior defensive line. And look, they've got some bodies at corner. Yes. You know, do they have some guys that can cover elite receivers in the SEC and do it well? We're going to find out. But what I'm getting at is how many teams, you know, that was one of the things when the schedule was released and everybody's like, this isn't going to be right. And then when everybody saw it, and it sure seemed at the time, and then of course everybody could be singing a different tune at the end of the season. Certainly Oklahoma would prefer a much easier schedule than they got. And there's a few others as well that are similar. But I think for the most part, everybody really liked the way it shook out. And I'm wondering how quickly everybody's going to be clamoring to go to a 9-game schedule. Because LSU brass seems to love these early season non-conference openers where they get a nice payday from ESPN.
Yeah, and you know, it used to be the whole appeal was recruiting. Like, you get on a national stage and you get to a big city like Houston or Dallas and all that. But like, recruiting's national. I mean, social media and all that, you don't have to go play these neutral field games anymore. And honestly, I wish we would get more of the home and homes. I know the Florida State thing was fun doing the Superdome and Camping World Stadium, but it would have been way more fun to do Baton Rouge and Tallahassee and actually be on campus at those stadiums. So I get it. People pay big bucks for those, but we're already seeing, Mike, like we saw USC bail out of some of their future games. I think Auburn and UCLA just canceled their future series. So we're starting to see some teams do this. And I think you're right. It's the early smoke signal that I think the SEC will move to that 9-game conference schedule here in the near future. And, you know, I think a lot of teams, the only rule that Greg Sankey and the SEC have is you must play one Power 5 non-conference game. Ole Miss is playing Wake Forest. Like, come on, what are we doing here? Like, that's what LSU should do every year. Go play Indiana and, you know, Wake Forest. And like, that should be your tough non-conference game. And, you know, I get people get up for these big games, but when you lose them, they're not fun. You know, look at LSU, the hole they dug for themselves each of the last 2 years, losing to Florida State. People are already going, well, that's it. Season's over. It's like, you can't have that feeling coming out of week 1.
No. Devin Johnson with a super chat. I've had him up on the screen for like 5 minutes. Texas and OU, them SEC atmospheres are no joke, or is he just kidding? Yeah, look, I think, LSU, if you're a season ticket holder for LSU football, the home slate is really nice with Ole Miss, Alabama, and Oklahoma to end the season in Tiger Stadium, plus UCLA, regardless of how bad or mediocre that you think they might be. That's still a national name, somebody that you've never seen in the stadium. And, oh, by the way, those stripes on the LSU shoulders was copied from the UCLA uniform. Of course, we all talked about that a few years ago when Orgeron took the team over there and got off to an ugly start in a season everybody'd like to forget.
Yeah, I was gonna compliment your sissy blue shirt tonight, Mike. But
yeah, when he said that, I said I'm in deep trouble because half my closet is that color blue. Yeah. All right. Let me scroll in here. What's up, guys? Nurse Court chimes in. Todd Davis, Texas hasn't won since Vince Young, and A&M is not in a while. Yeah. Everything's big in Texas, especially their overinflated egos, etc. There's a lot of that. And guys, if you also want to get your questions in for Chris Gordy, we're going to have him here till right around 9 o'clock, and very much appreciate him being with us. And but also need to pay some bills. And let's start things off with my buddies over at Pride Roofing. And of course, they're the title sponsor of TigerBait Live each and every week.
Hi, I'm Michael.
I'm Alex.
At Pride Roofing, we handle commercial and residential work.
TPO, shingle, and metal inventory.
We got it. Property still in disarray from the recent hailstorms. Insurance claims?
No problem. But you know Pride Roofing is the official roofer at TigerBait.com.
In fact, notify TigerBait and we'll give you a free roof inspection. And on top of that, you get a free year subscription. Call 855-PRIDE-16. Se habla español.
There you go, 855-PRIDE-16. Call them up anywhere in South Louisiana. Ask for your free roof inspection and say TigerBait, and they're going to pay for you to have TigerBait Premium free for a year with your free roof inspection, and they pay that bill. And it's you can't beat Pride Roofing, the official roofing company of TigerBait.com. Of course, Mike Faraday, the owner, one of the owners, an LSU grad, and his partner Alex, based in Hammond, new outlets in Houma, New Orleans, here in Baton Rouge. Mike Kirby, another classmate of mine that I grew up with, is running the Baton Rouge shop. So give them a call. And Mike's a big LSU fan as well. Looking at next week and the rundown of course, Brian Kelly's up on day one. Were you a little shocked by who LSU's bringing player-wise for interviews? I know a lot of people wondering why it wasn't Will Campbell, but I tend to think that it's a nice little group that they're bringing to SEC Kickoff.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with Nussmeier and Harold Perkins. They're your two biggest stars. Mason Taylor is fine. I think any other year you'd be, no big deal. They're bringing the tight end. Brian Kelly's always been a coach who uses his tight ends a ton, so no big deal. But yeah, I mean, when we were seeing mock drafts, Mike, where Will Campbell's going top 10, the EA Sports NCAA video game came out. They have him as one of the top rated players in the video game. I think we're all looking around going, what are we doing? Like, get this kid in front of a microphone. Let's go. It's not like he's not good with the media. I think Harold Perkins has gotten a lot better than he was, but early on, he was a tough interview. And it's like, is that your first pick to bring? But I get it. He's one of your biggest stars, but I'm with you. I think the perfect trio would have been Nuss, Harold Perkins, and Will Campbell.
I also think there might be a good chance that Will Campbell begged off, let someone else go. I can see Will doing something like that, but
I do like, Mike, though, that 11 of the 16 schools are bringing their quarterbacks. I think this thing has become such a high profile thing that you got to bring your stars. It used to be they shied away from it and they would bring guys that they thought exemplified leadership. And this is a guy this is a 6-year senior who's really toughed it out. Nobody cares. We want the stars. We want the big name players. And, A&M used to bring they brought their punter. I think South Carolina last year brought their punter. Like, no, stop. Bring the people we care about. And, it's a plus if they're a really good interview and have personality and all that. But you can't mess around anymore. There's 16 teams here. You got to bring your biggest name guys. And it's good to see 11 quarterbacks, because there was a time, Mike, they wouldn't bring quarterbacks where you wouldn't see, the biggest name on your team go. It's crazy. That used to happen.
Well, I also think too, I think a lot of these for years, regardless of whether it was Les Miles or Orgeron or Kelly, if you're a voracious consumer of LSU football content, most of the people around here by this time have either seen the head football coach at a speaking engagement or has done multiple, one-on-one interviews with somebody, and you've seen a whole lot of it. Brian Kelly hadn't done a whole lot in the last month. So I think whatever he's going to be delivering on Monday is sort of fresh, but because it's not like he's been at a bunch of Kiwanis or TAF speaking tours or anything like that. So I think he's going to have some fresh things to say. And I also think the venue change is going to make it maybe a bit of excitement there being in Texas. I'm sure the lay of the land there, they're going to want to make that thing as big and as exciting as it's ever been because they're getting an opportunity to host it in Dallas.
Well, hopefully he doesn't do what Les Miles used to do and spend the first 20 minutes talking about the Miles family vacation and where they went and what they did. Like, we don't need that.
Yeah, absolutely. Nurse Court says folks really out there believing in Lane Kiffin. Are you like me, Chris, where if Ole Miss doesn't do it this year, they're never going to do it? And I also think there's a good probability he's the next coach of the Florida Gators.
Yeah, it's funny. I had on my show today Ben Troop, the former Florida tight end on Locked on SEC.
Boy, he was a good one.
He was good. He had played in the NFL for a couple of years with Tennessee Titans, but he brought up that he heard that rumor's been floated out there, and I said, look, I don't even have a reaction to that because I've conditioned myself to believe every offseason, any job that opens, Lane Kiffin's name is going to be thrown in the mix. It's because he wants it to be thrown in the mix. It's because his agent, I think deep down, he realizes you can't win a national championship at Ole Miss. It's no offense to them. It's no offense to the people in Oxford. They're great people. They've got great history and tradition, all that. But like I said earlier, they've never been to Atlanta. They've never played for an SEC championship. They're just, even with Eli Manning, you couldn't get there. So it just feels like he knows deep down in that spot, he can't win big there. It's why his name was floated out for the Auburn job. You can win a championship at Auburn. You can win a championship at a lot of other schools. And so I just think every offseason his name is going to be thrown in the mix. He could sign a 10-year extension with Ole Miss, and yet every offseason, Lane Kiffin's name will be thrown in the mix for every high-profile job available.
I'm just saying if there's a futures line on that, I might be willing to put some hundreds down.
You're right. I mean, and they would celebrate.
Because I look at the hurdles that Napier's got ahead of him, and I know what Lane's looking at in Oxford and how he views it and looking for the first opportunity. I mean, look, you look at that Florida job and you think about it, and I mean, I'd have to go back and dig it up. I mean, I think Saban said it a couple of times publicly. In the early 2000s, if you quizzed a bunch of SEC coaches, or national coaches, what were some of the pinnacle jobs, or a pinnacle job in the SEC, the Florida was the job. And now for them to have how many coaches since Urban Meyer that have failed, but it's still that kind of job. If you get the right guy.
Well, even, Muschamp was a dud, but even McElwain won the East a couple of years. Now, he benefited years when the East was really down, but, even he had that somewhat success. But I like Napier a lot. I think he actually is a really good football mind. I just think, man, the minute he walked in there, he was already on a leash, on a really short leash, and they're like, let's go. And he's like, guys, you got to give me time to build this thing. The very interesting thing to watch, though, Mike, and I brought this up about Sark a couple of years ago when he went 5-7 his first year at Texas. He brought in Arch. And when things didn't go great in year 2, a lot of people were saying, look, let's just stick through this because he's bringing in Arch. If you want to move on from Sark this quick after 2-3 years, you lose Arch. He just brought in DJ Lagway down there, the big 5-star quarterback from the state of Texas, and fans are absolutely in love with him. If they were to make a move from Billy Napier, I think DJ Lagway's in the portal and he's gone. Is it worth sticking with Napier one more year to see what Lagway does as a full-time starter next year? I think he's got to go. Look, if he can get to 6 wins, I think 6-6 saves Napier's job and he's back next year. But anything below that, I get it's a brutal schedule, but another 5-7, I don't think you can keep him. It's just the optics are bad, and that's a rabid fan base down there in the swamp. I don't think they'll stick it out. But everything I've heard about Lagway,
I'm taking Miami in the opener.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly, if they can win that one, Mike, they have a chance to start 5-0. And then the brutal schedule starts after that. But it's kind of what they did last year, right? They got a bunch of early season wins, and then they lost out. They couldn't win another game. But Lagway's special, man. Everybody I've talked to said this kid is the real deal. And I mean, he already looks like his body and his muscle. He's a freshman walking on campus, but he looks like the real deal.
Mark J. Blake Baker will be the difference in the defense this season. He will scheme with the players that we have. Go Tigers. Look, what year did you graduate LSU?
I was there 04 through 08.
Okay. I said this on Sanji's show today, and I kind of have said something similar multiple times. And tell me if you understand or you agree with me or disagree. When I look at this LSU team, particularly the issues they have on defense, if they were playing, let's say, a 2008 or 2012 schedule, and those teams were what they were, course, look, everybody's evolved a little bit, but I think that you would be looking at this team and thinking 8-4. But when I go week by week, and I think with Blake Baker, and yeah, you've got issues at defensive tackle and corner, I'm thinking I can see where Vegas is at 9.5 over under. And so I could see going 9-3, but it's also like, because if you think that this team has flaws that are not really good to being a playoff team or being in contention for championship, you know, you're looking at the schedule like I don't know how they get there, but I go week by week and I'm like, where do they get the loss? Where are the losses going to come from?
Well,
even with those deficiencies.
Yeah, I'm worried. I look at the D line, and again, let's just say Jacoby and Guillory gets hurt in camp. I mean, you are so thin on the interior of that defensive line
Absolutely.
already. That scares the hell out of me. I mean, you've got to put him in bubble wrap and make sure he stays healthy all year.
Yeah, Chris, and that's not a deal where it's. I mean, you typically at different times when do you don't have during a season where you have a couple of defensive linemen nicked up?
Yeah, no, it happens all the time. I mean, and then who's the last true edge that put fear into other teams? I mean, you don't have to go back as far as Tyson Jackson and in that group, but Ali Gay was fine. I mean, they've had guys who've been fine, but
Daniil Hunter,
yeah. I mean, but even him at LSU, we didn't think he'd turn into this, perennial all pro every year in the NFL. But, I just look at that and go, there wasn't a guy out there that they could, whether it be a 5-star recruit or just a kid through the portal. And it's no offense to Savion Jones. Maybe he takes that leap and he's awesome this year. Maybe, Parashan lives up to, the billing, but I just wonder where is that guy? And it's just a lot of unknowns. I put it this way, Mike, I love the coaching changes. I think this coaching staff is awesome. From Blake Baker on down to Bo Davis, Corey Raymond, they check all the boxes coaching wise. I just look around that room and go, you guys couldn't do a little bit more work in the portal to address some of these immediate needs. They brought in some decent guys, but
you're picking a scab, Chris. You're picking a scab on the show right now. Talking about defensive tackles in the portal. I beat that dead horse for months. But yeah, and they ended up getting some in the spring portal period. But yeah. Devin Johnson with another super chat. Let me clarify. Texas and OU will be shell shocked. Talking about going into SEC venues. It's I don't know, man. I don't want to be one of those LSU media guys that knows all the issues, but that gets caught up in all the hoopla and then starts predicting crazy one-loss records in August before it kicks off.
Well, I'll tell you this, Mike. We had wide receiver Kyle Parker on Locked On SEC a couple weeks ago, and he spoke glowingly of the DBs. He said he thought PJ Woodland stood out to him. Ashton Stamps, Javen Toviano. He mentioned all those guys and said they've all taken steps forward and look better. So, you add Jordan Gilbert. I think he's going to help tremendously. Major Burns, we'll see. But Sage Ryan, again, and we'll see on him. But I do think that maybe if the secondary is improved, that will help a lot of issues. You don't have to have the 12 sack guy off the edge. If you can have good solid secondary play, and I think we all agree. I think we think the linebacker crew is really good. So to me, if a strong secondary, a strong linebacking core, maybe you can afford to have a few deficiencies up front.
All right, let's hear from Genesis of Lafayette. There you go, 337-984-9050. Get over to Genesis of Lafayette. If you do yourself a favor, test drive a GV70, a GV80, any of their sedans. There's a reason why each Genesis vehicle in each category is near the top list, or if not number one. It's a fantastic vehicle that you're getting for the money. They're really putting the heat on all their competitors in the luxury car and SUV market. And the folks at Genesis of Lafayette, like I said last week, one of the best experiences ever buying a vehicle from them here in this household. And absolutely give them a call. Tell them you heard about them on TigerBait. And the 2025s are on the lot right now. And right there on Johnson Street in Lafayette, and they service all of Louisiana. And believe me, it's worth it. If you're in Baton Rouge or anywhere in the state of Louisiana, it's worth it to give them a call. In fact, you don't even have to make the drive to Lafayette. They'll bring a car to you. And that's how in tune they are to their customers, and will bend over backwards to earn your business. All right. Let's get to dive into some more of these. All right. S. Young, isn't Taylor projected the second highest tight end in the draft next year? I have not seen that. Have you seen that, Chris?
I haven't looked at where the tight ends are ranked next year, but I mean, but what does that mean? Second highest tight end. We have years where there's no tight ends that go in the first round. We have years where 2 tight ends get drafted in the first round. So does that mean he's a first rounder, second rounder? I don't know, but I'm not saying Mason Taylor's a bad pick. I'm just saying you and I agree. Will Campbell would have been a better option.
I thought he would have had a better second year last year than he did. I think he's about to bounce back in a big way. I think he could be very pivotal for Garrett Nussmeier and the things that they want to do offensively. It's going to be different than it was on Jaden Daniels, that's for sure. And they're certainly going to want to run the football a lot more and establish the run game. They want some time of possession, Chris. What are we talking about? The issues, defense. They want that defense to be on the field a lot less than they have been. And that means running the football a bit and eating some clock.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's what I think. Like, Brian Kelly wants to run the football. I mean, all this talk of Nussmeier, and look, he looked awesome throughout the spring, right? He played great in the bowl game. The spring game was flawless, and everything we heard throughout the spring was how good Nuss looked. And I think the receivers are going to be fine. But I think deep down, Brian Kelly, it'd be great if they could be 50-50. I think we all want to see what Caleb Jackson could do with a bulk of carries this year, but don't discount Josh Williams. That dude has had some huge runs for you throughout the years. It feels like every Bama game, he tends to have a big run for you. We'll see out in Caden Durham. Everybody I talk to, in Texas love Caden Durham coming out of high school. So I think there's some room for him to play early, but I think we all want to see Caleb Jackson toting the rock a ton and just running dudes over.
Yeah, that's something we discuss a lot here. And you bring up Josh Williams, and look, if you see him in street clothes, you're like, that's an SEC running back. Man, I wish they would do I'm sure somebody has, and I haven't seen it, a mashup of him pass blocking.
Yeah.
That is insane. I ran into him at the Friday Night Lights. Someone had tweeted out a few clips of him pass blocking, and no, I know what it was. I was watching a replay of the Florida game and some of the blocks that he made in that game. That's why Frank Wilson loves him so much. And if Caleb Jackson can learn from him, Josh Williams, is how to be a great pass blocker, then you'll see him more in the football game. But you're right. There's no doubt about it, as far as breakaway speed and power and looks like some of the best big backs you've seen at LSU in history. Caleb Jackson has all that, but it's also about the stuff that he does when it's a single back set and it's his job to block a guy coming off the edge and knowing to be in the right spot.
The problem is just don't be predictable. Don't telegraph, oh, Josh Williams is in. We know it's a passing down. Caleb Jackson's in. Okay, now we know it's a handoff. They need to battle that. But it's crazy too, Mike, to think how long Josh Williams has been here. I mean, he played that 2020 season with Max Johnson. I remember he got in with TJ Finley, that he was there with Jaden Daniels last couple of years. Now he's going to be there with Nuss. I mean, feels like he's been there forever, and just an important piece. Maybe not the headline piece, but crucial, especially on passing downs, like you said.
American Patriot with a super chat. Great show, guys. Buddy is looking young tonight. Exactly.
We miss Buddy here tonight. Send that $5 to Buddy. That should go to Buddy for that.
A couple more. American Patriot with another super chat. Will Napier still be the coach in our game? That's been kind of an over and under as well. And there you go. And then Kenny Haynes with a super chat. He doesn't like my Under Armour shirt, I guess. Maybe he doesn't like the branding. Let's see. Yeah, Dane Bergeron, he is sporting his Under Armour Sissy Blues tonight. These guys are always giving me beef, Chris. But they're my pals. Big time, long time TigerBait subscribers. Okay. Texas is going to be good. Stop the cap. LSU for life.
I didn't say they're not going to be good. I'm just saying, all right, you want me to go through my spiel? Here's my spiel. Is Steve Sarkisian a great coach? Do we know if he's a great coach? Steve Sarkisian, his time at Washington, his best season at Washington was 8-4. His best season at USC was 9-4. His best season at Texas prior to last season was 8-5. I think that's more of who Steve Sarkisian is as a head coach. He's an 8-9 win coach. Last year, 12 wins, awesome. But that's the outlier. Sark isn't a 12 win a year coach every year and just going to dominate. Like, it's Texas. We always joke and go, is Texas back? We did it when Tom Herman was there, and Sam Ehlinger held up the trophy and said, Texas is back. Yeah, and then you weren't. You drop right back down to reality. So I think Texas is good. I think they can go 10-2 this year, make the playoff, win a game or two. I just don't think they're going to win the SEC. And I have some questions about Quinn Ewers as well. Quinn Ewers has gotten hurt each of the last 2 seasons, and they've had to play a backup. If Arch Manning gets in there and lights it up against one of these teams they play, he might get Wally pipped. You may not get back in there if Arch goes in there and lights the world on fire. The fans will riot. There will be riots in the streets with pitchforks saying, give Arch the job, screw Quinn Ewers, So we'll see what happens. But I'm not saying Texas is going to be bad. I'm just saying they ain't going 12-0. And I'm not just automatically penciling them in Atlanta in a conference they've never played in before. This ain't Baylor and Kansas, all right? You got to play real teams.
Chris, I'm getting the impression that you would absolutely love for Texas to stumble in a big way in the 24 season more than Alabama.
I still want to see Bama lose, but it's funny too. Our radio station in Houston, we carry the Longhorns and we carry LSU, so we carry both teams, and so I have a little affinity for Texas. I cheered like hell for them in that Alabama game last year. I wanted them to pull it off, but I also understand it was a one-off. That's not what they're going to do every week. If they had to play an SEC, if they had to play Bama every week, guess what? They're not going to beat them every week. It's an SEC schedule. It's a grind for a reason. And it's the trench play. It's the offensive defensive line. I know Texas is going to have a really good O-line this year. I think the defensive line is not going to be as good in losing Bo Davis as your D-line coach and then losing Tavondre Sweat, losing Byron Murphy. These are all big pieces on their defense last year. You don't just flip a script and go, oh, next man up. The Georgias do that. The Bamas do that. Texas isn't there yet.
John Sibley Butler with a great, very nice super chat. Thanks for a great show. Thank you for the support, John Sibley Butler. He's with us every week and one of our best supporters of LSU Tigers on TigerBait, and glad to have him with us. Rick Cloetti says, Chris, you are right. UT and OU are going to be baptized by fire by running the gauntlet of an SEC schedule.
I'm not going that extreme either. I don't think they're going to win, go 6-6. Like, I think they're going to be good, but look, Texas got the benefit of the doubt with the schedule. I will say week 2, though, at Michigan, going to the big house, don't just pencil in a W there. I know Michigan lost a ton. They have a new head coach. That still is one of the toughest places to play in college football when it's alive and rocking. I know it's an 11 a.m. game, and that kind of stinks. I kind of wish it was a night game, but don't just pencil in Texas is going to go into Michigan and win 40-13. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. But look, like I said, they lost Oklahoma last year. They keep Oklahoma on the schedule again. And the next week, you got to go play Georgia. You get them in Austin, but like Georgia is going to give you a huge punch in the mouth. And if you come in walking wounded out of the Oklahoma game, which is already one of the most bitter rivalries, and then you got to go play Georgia, can't just pencil in a W there. And then that A&M game, I'm telling you right now, Mike, it's in College Station. Those people are already talking about that game like it's going to be the Super Bowl. And the Schlossnagle stuff was more fuel to the fire for this rivalry. Like, think of 2 years ago, Mike, when LSU went to A&M, and A&M had 4 wins, and they weren't going to a bowl game, and the season was over. Jimbo rallied the troops and they got healthy. Devon Achane got healthy. Moose Muhammad came out, had one of his best games of the season. They played their butts off that night to whoop LSU and try to mess up their hopes of any chance of a playoff. We already knew LSU was going to Atlanta. They had already won the West. But A&M put everything they had in that game. And that crowd was rocking. It was loud as hell. Multiply that by times 10. That's how bad they're going to beat Texas on that night. But big brother versus little brother, they're following you to the conference you went to get away from them. Oh, I keep looking at that game, Mike, and saying I'd put a high dollar figure on A&M to find a way to win that game that night. Mike Elko, his defensive scheme versus Sark's offensive scheme. Whew, I'm telling you right now, if you could put some money on Texas losing that A&M game at the end of the season, the Aggies are going to go all in, do whatever they have to do to win that game.
Boy, that would be something. And look, I loved. I enjoy some A&M misery, but I'm pulling for the Aggies in that one. All right, Alumni Hall. Let me pay a bill real quick. Folks, Tiger fans, I'm going to tell you about the best place to get all your LSU fan gear. Alumni Hall. Shop at their store off Blue Bonnet in Perkins Row or shop online at alumnihall.com. They've got it all. Nike gear, Champion, Johnny O, Almond Reserve, Peter Millar, Southern Tide, and much more. They've got all the nicest polos, all the stuff, the new polos from Nike that the coaches are going to be wearing on the sideline this football season have arrived. You need to get those before they're gone. And so shop with them and earn rewards on future purchases with their Hall Pass Rewards program. I have this discount code to share with my friends and subscribers. So when you shop, use code TigerBait, all one word, TigerBait. You can use it in-store or online, and you're going to get 10% off your purchase. Go shop with my friends at Alumni Hall and use the code TigerBait to save. Absolutely beautiful store in Perkins Road, packed to the gills with LSU product gear. If there's something you want with an LSU logo go on it, if they don't have it at Alumni Hall, nobody does. And what's even greater is if you're in North Louisiana, Houston, wherever, the product's actually going to ship from the Baton Rouge location, so you're going to get it quick. Dane Bergeron with a super chat. Good job, Chris. I like your analysis. All right. I'm glad we had him. And thank you for that super chat.
Check out Locked On SEC. My face turns red a lot and I rant. So
yeah, tell them about your channel. To me, you crank out continuous content on Locked On SEC. And to me, I think you ought to be over 10,000 subscribers. So maybe some TigerBait viewers tonight can add to your count.
Yeah, we're slowly building the YouTube channel. We just started up a little over a year ago, and we're over 6,000 now. So we're getting closer to
that's
the 10,000.
A nice number.
Yeah, we're trying to. I cover the SEC as a whole. I'm an LSU guy through and through. On Saturdays I watch LSU. I'm rooting like hell for them. But when I do the podcast, I separate the fandom and I call it like it is. And when LSU stinks, I say they stink. And so I've just always had an affinity for the SEC. I think it's just part of becoming a fan of a school in the SEC. We follow the other teams more closely than anybody else. They don't do this in other conferences. An LSU fan can tell you the starting quarterback at Alabama and the starting running back at Auburn and so on and so forth. The Big Ten, they don't do that. Like an Ohio State fan has no idea who USC's quarterback is right now and things like that. We care a lot more. We pay more attention to all the teams. And so I love doing interviews. We've had a ton of players this offseason, on the show, current SEC players, some national guests here and there as well. We're kind of doing a series. We had Nick Anderson, the star wide receiver from Oklahoma. Like I said, we had Kyle Parker from LSU on a few weeks ago. I just like kind of getting to know the kids because it's always fun to see when they go on. I mean, the first round of this year's NFL draft, like 10 of the dudes were guys we've had on the show, from Darius Robinson at Mizzou to Brock Bowers from Georgia. We've had all those guys on as guests here in the last year. And I try to joke with them. I say, look, guys we have on end up being first and second round picks. So keep coming on the show, guys. Like we're maybe a good luck charm for you. But no, we just like to, stay up to date on all the news going around the SEC. We do a segment called Around the Conference where we update you on all the biggest news, recruiting news as well. Not as detailed as you get into, obviously, Mike, but it's just funny. In the SEC, we always keep our antennas up. And as much as we love our team, we pay attention to what all the other teams are doing around the conference as well.
Well, it's easy to find. Just go to YouTube in the search box, type in Locked On SEC. You'll see them. hit the subscribe button, notification bell there. If you haven't done it here, definitely do it here as well. And if you enjoyed the show tonight, please do me a favor and hit that like button. Helps us with the YouTube algorithm and gets us in that recommended area on YouTube, which is a big help to the channel. And Chris, man, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on, and I really want to do it again. In all seriousness, I'd like to be able to get you back. This was fantastic, and it's perfect timing with SEC football kickoff media days in Dallas next week. And like I said, to start the show, you're going to be there, and of course, you'll have a lot of coverage there that we'll be following as well.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it, Mike. And let's see who this LSU baseball commit's going to be. All right.
Yeah, man. I don't get to go unplug. I got to get stay plugged in for a while. But 10 o'clock LSU baseball is getting a commitment, and it's going to be a big one. It looks like. So, all right, Chris, and thanks everybody for participating. Thanks for the super chats, and we'll see you again next Wednesday night. Good night.